Alright guys, what I've got for you today is the Rokinon 35mm f1.4 lens. It's sold under a bunch of different brand names, but they're all basically the same with a slightly different color on the outside, say the Samyang brand or the Rokinon brand. This one is designed to be a cheaper alternative to the Canon 35mm f1.4 lens. This is a $1,300 lens versus a $400 to $500 lens. In the same price range, you have the Sigma 30mm f1.4. This one is autofocus, while this one is manual focus, but they're both about the same price. The Rokinon is supposed to be pretty good for filmmakers, and there are other ways to improve this to make it a better filmmaking tool. But first, let's take a closer look at the Rokinon 35mm f1.4 lens. Taking a closer look at these three lenses stacked together, you'll see that the Rokinon is the largest and heaviest lens, followed closely by the Canon, which is slightly smaller but weighs about the same, and then the little petite Sigma 30mm f1.4. This one is the lightest out of the bunch, so if you're trying to think about weight for your rig or the size of the lens, if you have other items in there like a matte box that you need to consider, just remember that the Rokinon is fairly heavy and it is longer than some of the other options. Taking a closer look at the Rokinon 35mm f1.4 lens, build quality feels nice and solid even though the lens is made out of plastic. The focus ring travels nice and smooth and gives you about 110 degrees worth of travel, which shouldn't be too bad for using it with a follow focus. The aperture ring goes from 1.4 to f22, and there are tutorials online that will show you how to declick the aperture ring if you're looking for more of a cine style application. There is no electronics built into this, and you do not have a focus confirmation chip built into the lens. So if you're using this for photography, it might be a little tough to get things in focus at f1.4. If you're filming with this, since the focus ring has nice hard stops, as long as you mark your follow focus with the points that you want to be in focus, you shouldn't have too much of a problem getting back to your focus points with this lens even at f1.4. The Sigma 31.4 does have a focus ring, but it's not very smooth. It's kind of jerkety, and it only gives you about 90 degrees or so worth of travel. It's not very good for a follow focus at all. The Rokinon, on the other hand, has very smooth travel, gives you about 120 degrees, 115 degrees worth of rotation, and it's nice and smooth with hard end stops. The Canon, on the other hand, gives you decent focus operation, but it doesn't have hard end stops. So if you're using this with a follow focus, you could accidentally go past a little ways, and then you go back to your mark and suddenly things aren't in focus. That means this isn't quite as handy as the Rokinon for follow focus use. If you're planning to use a follow focus, the Rokinon is definitely the way to go. Alright, so taking a closer look at the full frame test results, let's go ahead and zoom into 100% here. And you can see that it's sharp in the middle, and as we scroll out to the edges, it is also sharp there. Sharpness in the corners and in the center is not an issue even wide open at f1.4. And if we go ahead and zoom back out again to 50%, you can see just a little bit of vignetting here. You'll notice this area is slightly darker than over here. It's not too bad, but it is there. It's not nearly as noticeable as it was on some of the other lenses I've tested in the past. So if you're worried about vignetting wide open, it shouldn't be a huge issue on a full frame body. All right, taking a closer look at the crop sensor test, let's go ahead and zoom into 100%, and you can see that it is sharp in the center. And as we scroll out to the edges, it's still nice and sharp in the corner. So it's not too bad overall. If you zoom back out to fit the window here, you'll see that there isn't really any noticeable vignetting on this lens on a crop sensor body, which is to be expected since there was only a slight vignetting on the full frame body. One other thing to note is that the front element of the Rokinon 35mm f1.4 extends and contracts as the lens operates. This shouldn't be a huge issue since the filter threads are past the distance where the lens element moves, so you shouldn't have any problem with filters themselves. It's just something odd that I noticed that you don't see on either the Canon 35mm f1.4 or the Sigma 30mm f1.4.
Taking a look at the bokeh results, on the left-hand side, you can see I have the Rokinon 35mm f1.4, and on the right side, I have a shot with the Canon 35mm f1.4. Those two are demonstrating the bokeh from both of these lenses, and you can see that they both look about the same. Both of these have nice rounded aperture blades that look pretty good and give you nice, round, delicious bokeh. There's no lens flare problems on this one, although if you throw in the Sigma test here, you can see a nice lens flare right there. The Sigma 30mm f1.4 is prone to a little bit of lens flare, and it kind of gives you a little bit more of an oblong-shaped bokeh effect. But overall, all three of them look pretty nice. If you're worried about lens flare, the Sigma is the biggest problem child out of the bunch. The Rokinon doesn't have much problem at all, and overall looks pretty nice.
After taking the opportunity to spend some time with the Rokinon 35mm f1.4 lens, I can safely say that it's a pretty decent bargain. The lens is fairly sharp from corner to corner at f1.4, and vignetting isn't too bad on a full frame body. It's not even noticeable on a crop sensor body, and this is very sharp corner to corner on a crop sensor body. But the most attractive feature about this lens is its price. At between $400 and $500, it is a lot less expensive than the Canon 35mm f1.4 lens, which is a very expensive $1,300. Compare that to this price tag and this starts to look very attractive. However, this is a manual focus lens, so make sure you keep that in mind when you're deciding what to buy. If you need a lens with autofocus, you might want to consider the Sigma 30mm f1.4 or the Canon 28mm f1.8 if you're planning to go to a full frame body in the future. Otherwise, this is a decent lens to consider overall. If you'd like to find out more about the Rokinon 35mm f1.4 lens, I'll have a full write-up over at DSLRFilmNoob.com, so swing over to there to check that out. I'll also have information on all the equipment that's used in the crotch bar below. As always, thanks for watching, and if you like this content, please subscribe.